Hey everybody, this is Mike Overs. That is April the 4th, 2023. The reason I'm making this video is we were just out there at the city planning meeting for the city of Van Buren fighting for policyholders. We're a member of the APA, American Policyholder Association, to protect from insurance fraud. And this video shows that the City Hall and the city officials, government officials, planning commission is saying no to policyholders and putting into effect a 25% rule, which Fort Smith has already adopted to protect policyholders from insurance fraud. They voted no today, even though facts, data, information, the only thing they could care about is their insurance rates going up, which they're already going up all over the state, one of the most in the whole country last year. And we're here trying to protect you from fraud. So the next time we're gonna fill that room with 20 to 30 citizens of Van Buren, including other roofers, to show them that they can't tell you guys no and only care about their own skin and protecting themselves, because that rule is supposed to be there to protect policyholders from insurance fraud. And this is one of the worst states for not having consumer protections for policyholders, and we're there fighting for you. So around the clock, we're fighting for you to help you, and we're gonna eventually get this passed, even though that they wanna say no to putting into effect a 25% rule, which just makes sense. So here's the video for you to watch, but be careful who you guys vote for, because these people really don't care about you. They care about themselves and their own skin in the game, and they don't really care about helping policyholders, and that's what this video shows.
Unless you have any more questions of me, or any of you as the chairman, any of the commissioners have any questions of me, Mike Stewart, present this case for why he thinks Van Buren should adopt this requirement. All right. Absolutely.
I appreciate that so much. So awesome. So just want to first of all say, thank you guys for all being here. I know we're about to have a storm, and you guys are all doing a good job, so I appreciate that. What I also say, David, his office is doing a great job. He got me in touch with you guys, and so I really appreciate that. One of the issues that we've been running into with all of these towns that are up here is that they're not adopting the code that you guys have already. You guys have been there for us for that code, and that's for the ice and water barrier around the perimeter. And so a lot of these towns probably haven't even had this brought to their attention of why this sort of rule would be really important to have going forward. So what we run into a lot is we deal with insurance carriers, everybody from Allstate to State Farm to Farmers to Shelter, pretty much a lot of different carriers that we deal with on a daily basis. The state of Arkansas as a state does not have a good appeal process for homeowners that have had denied claims. So what this rule does is it protects homeowners from insurance companies that want to, quite frankly, fraud them out of getting a roof when it's legitimate damage. And so the first issue with most roofs that need to be repaired is if they're over 10 years old, you're dealing with a repairability factor. So there's a test that's called a shingle test, lift test, where you lift it up. It's not really a good test, but there was a viral video where State Farm had gone viral because they were arguing about the repairability test. But the easiest way is to take a shingle and send it to a lab called ITEL. And the lab will tell you if it's too brittle to be able to lift up to get the fasteners underneath to remove that shingle. So what happens a lot of times is when one shingle is damaged, all those shingles around it, when you try to repair it, will start breaking around it. So if it's a hailstorm, and you have hail hits all over the roof, which for architectural shingles, it's 1.25 inches that will be the threshold to damage it. Then you have holes basically all over the roof, and you try to repair it, it's basically impossible. So what a lot of carriers will do is they'll try to come out and they'll say, hey, we're going to patch this one spot, and it couldn't be up to that threshold of 25%, and then they try to repair it, it breaks the shingles around it, and now they're stuck with the insurance company saying they don't want to pay for it. So it's very, very important that this rule is in effect, because it's going to protect all the policyholders that are around here, and that's why we're part of an organization called the APA, which is American Policy Association, which protects people against fraud. So now, what happens is a lot of times when the carriers come out and they do deny a claim, there's nothing we can do about it. The only other real thing that you can do is have a homeowner come out and do a re-inspection, but even then they can just re-deny it, and then there's really no recourse. The only recourse is to take it to an attorney, and for for an attorney to pick up a claim that's $10,000 or $15,000 isn't really beneficial, because now they're eating into what should be paid out to the homeowner, and there's really no recourse. In this state, we don't have public adjusters, which is horrible. And so if you wanted to have a public adjuster take it and it go to appraisal, you can't do it because there's no public adjusters in the state. So a lot of times when an insurance company is committing fraud and we're trying to help a homeowner, there's nothing we can really do. So this is a protection to them to make sure that the standards are equitable, so that the insurance companies aren't trying to come out and just deny claims over and over and over again. And so that's kind of what all this goes over, kind of throughout this email. It says, about midway through, it says, companies like Allstate, State Farm will actually increase the damage thresholds to impossible levels, saying you need at least 10 to 12 hits per square, when most other insurance companies are 5 to 8 mil hits. So certain insurance companies will say you need this many hits, certain insurance companies will say you need this many hits, and there's no like standard procedure as to how to actually protect the policyholder. It starts with you guys. It starts with coming in here and having these meetings, and then us coming in, which that's why I'm very grateful to be here, and us to be able to get in contact with you guys very quickly about this, because it's going on all the time, and then homeowners are getting stuck without having their roof replaced, and now they have leaks all over the place. And you know, with inflation and everything that's going on, they have a damaged roof, they paid their insurance company, they want them to be there now, and now the insurance company's not there. So I'm actually a Hague certified roofer, which used to be an engineering standard that insurance companies would use to determine thresholds. Most of the adjusters that we run into are not Hague certified, and they don't care anything about Hague standards. So for example, 3-tab roof takes 1-inch size hail to damage the shingle and break the matting, which will cause a leak. And the roof would be hit with 1.75-inch hail, and we're like, hey, there's damage here, there's holes all over the matting, and they just basically tell us they don't care and the kid rocks. So this happens all the time. It's one of the worst I've ever seen as far as insurance companies commonly committing fraud all the time. And so the problem is when this happens, Zach knows there's really not much that we can do except tell him, hey, we're sorry that we weren't able to get your roof approved. We know of an attorney that you might be able to contact, but it's not really in our hands at this point. We can't do anything. We can tag the state on it and hope that they respond to it, but I've talked to the state, Arkansas, one of the investigators there, and he had the same thing happen to him. So it's a way to protect it, and that's why Fort Smith went to it. So we've actually have been at groups before where we had an adjuster where it was on speakerphone, where we could hear the conversation out the car, and their desk adjuster was telling them, hey, beware of the 25%. But why? Because it's a protection for the people. It's protection for the citizens of this, of this area, and to make sure that they're not being taken advantage of fairly by the insurance company. So you have the repairability issue, you have the thresholds of the insurance companies not really covering it, and it really is just kind of leveling the playing field to make sure that the insurance companies aren't coming out and trying to just create impossible thresholds. Now, most roofs that are architectural, which might be a couple years old, then it didn't hit those thresholds, usually the insurance companies and the roofers, that's where we're a lot of times meeting with the adjusters, we'll agree, okay, hey, the homeowner called you out, it's not that, it's probably not going to be the biggest hail and cause problems, so we can usually make those decisions. But when you have it stacked against it in favor of the insurance companies, we don't have anything that we can do for the citizens of Van Buren in the area to protect them. So that's just a way for us to be able to help everyone around here, and that's kind of why we're here today, and also just talk about what to do once we build the roof back, which is important. If you want me to transition to that, I can. Or,
Let's deal with this. Wally, did any other cities have a different threshold?
We have nothing, zero.
Okay.
We have no requirement.
125 and the rest is
nothing.
Okay.
Yeah. And keep in mind the most of these other cities too, you guys have already adopted the ice and water barrier around the perimeter. Bella Vista is the only other place that's adopted it, so you guys are just way ahead of what the other cities are, and them not adopting ice and water around the perimeter has created massive issues. Like Little Rock that just got hit, we've been targeting roofs all throughout the weekend. What's the first thing that starts to happen? The high wind zones start to fail, like the ridge and the perimeter. So if a lot of these homeowners had that code in place that you guys have already adopted, then when the roof was ripped off, then you would have this leak barrier all around those high wind zones, and they wouldn't have this problem. Furthermore, I've heard from David that more often they're starting to hear that there's damming that's starting to happen around the perimeter, and that's the point of the ice and water barrier. So, in our state, in order to get a license, a roofing license, all you need to do is get a bond and then file with the state. There's no requirements, there's none of that. We're one of the few contractors that go to ABC and pick up ice and water barriers and follow the codes that you guys have already put into place. So, this is a way to protect them and also make sure, like, you guys are ahead of all these cities. That's all this means, is that you guys are just ahead of them. You guys are obviously doing a really good job of what you're doing, because they should have already adopted this as well as all the ice and water barrier before we even got the books, you know? And that's kind of my point of it, because that's not a good indication of the fact that they're on the ball, it's that you guys are on the ball, you know?
From a legal standpoint, is there any input one way or the other that you could offer?
No, I mean, I've never faced this particular issue, so I won't pretend to be an expert on it, but the only concern that I would have, and I love your passion for it, but your relationship with your insurance company is a private contract and is not bound by the city. So if that's a regulation and there's not at least an exception that says, well, my insurance company won't pay for it, then we're holding the citizen of the city responsible for, if it's 26% of the roof, and the insurance company says, well, I'll pay for 26%, here's $5,000, you gotta come up with the other, $15,000 yourself. We're making them do that at that point, which is pretty challenging.
I think it was Phil sent out an email, I think, basically stating that.
Wally, what was your experience in Fort Smith on this, during that instance, there was an instance like you stated?
I personally never experienced any incident like that. I've never experienced an incident.
That doesn't happen. See,
I mean, I don't know, if it happened, I just didn't come across my level of intent.
that's a very
To
valid.
be clear, I haven't seen that happen. It's just as I'm listening, I'm going,
Dealing with insurance companies.
State Farm isn't worried about what the Van Buren City Council says about those thresholds.
Yeah, well, there's actually an endorsement of policies called code coverage. So I've done roofing in hurricane areas and all over the place. Insurance companies are starting to shift their mindset and going from, let's be more preventative. So in Florida, they have Miami-Dade standards, right? So 6 nails, all those things, and that's where we'll get more into that, which I wrote all those things out. But the key is the reason why all this is happening is because the insurance companies aren't incentivizing the homeowners to build back a fortified roof system. Roofs are supposed to last 30 years. Now they can last 40 years, they can last 50 years. They're supposed to. The problem is they're using subpar materials, they're cutting corners, they're cutting all these things that are supposed to be done. That's what's happening. That's why there's so much damage. So
That and the weather's gotten more violent.
And
so
yes.
There's tornadoes where there were tornadoes.
Absolutely.
And they're more frequent.
Yes.
The problem is the insurance is being more thrifty and more selective on what they're paying out because there's more risk. There's a whole lot more risk.
Right.
So they don't pay out like they used to. And it's
Yeah.
the same for health insurance. We deal with health insurance all the time. And so, I mean, the risk is just higher
Right.
because of the things that are out there. So that's the problem that they're having.
Yes.
The problem with this is, and I understand what you're saying, it's like hey, my city says I have to have my roof repaired, but the city's actually saying you only have to have 25%, you have to do it 25, so they can pay up to 25, just like you said, and then you're stuck with having to pay the rest of the roof.
Right, and I haven't seen that ever happen. It's more for being.
But the pettiness of the insurance companies is a real thing.
Right,
And
right.
especially now when you have more flooding, more hurricanes, more mudslides, all that stuff, because the insurance is just not an isolated thing from state to state. They're worldwide in some cases, and they're nationwide in the majority of cases. So they're not looking case by case, state by state.
Right,
To see what I'm gonna pay out and what I'm not. They're looking at their bottom line, they're looking at their investors and they're saying, okay, the
Yeah,
risk is
right.
way too much, y'all are having too much, we
Right,
don't
right.
have that much to dole out, because now I can't pay my people the commission, because they're commission only salesmen that are going out there, now I can't pay my investors, so now I'm gonna have to reel back, so that's the issue.
Yeah, to kind of, I do about, like, I'm working on any one time about claims every day. This is where it totally flips on its head, and most city officials and local municipalities haven't realized the power is totally in your guys' hands. Because the insurance companies are basically beholden to whatever you tell it needs to be into effect. So anytime that we get into a dispute, right, about what should be up on a roof, and they use a software, which you're probably familiar, in roofing, it's exactly it. And I can show you exact names and all that. It always comes down to what does the city say. So when we're getting into this policy-related question of, let's just get them coverage and get the roof approved, right? They're always gonna come down to what you guys are saying, and if you have a 25% rule in effect, it's power to people, it's to protect the people. So I have not seen Fort Smith ever have this issue where this has happened, where they're forced to, and quite frankly, at that point, they should get their roof replaced, because if it's been there as long as it is, and it's been damaged as many times as it is, they should have already replaced the roof on anything, they shouldn't have gotten insured with it, and the insurance company shouldn't have insured it, right? So this is just a protection as far as what gets into the policy dispute, because we're contractors, we're not allowed to argue policy, we cannot do that, that's a job of an adjuster. So anytime this comes down to it, they're looking at two things, what's in the policy, and then what does the local municipality say? And as a company, we install ice and water around the perimeter all the time, because we're following these updates in the code, we're constantly referencing these updates in the code, and they're saying, what does the municipality say, what does the city say? So the city, you guys have an extraordinary amount of power to control what State Farm does and all that, because now you're tying it to the policy. And if they have code coverage, they're gonna give them all these updates in their code. If they don't, then it really comes down to the homeowner, and then that's where the contractor has to work with them. But it starts with us, it starts with you guys, and like, we can make this better for everybody here.
I have a question. How would, as a homeowner, how would I find out about this code coverage in the roof? Is that something that the insurance company is going to tell me? Or if they say, oh, you should have had that, so now you're responsible for $70?
When you buy the policy, they should be a good
It's
agent.
not gonna be standard
Yeah,
on all of
they're
them.
not.
They don't put the addendums on there like they used to, like
Okay,
sometimes
so
they'll say,
that's
I'll
my
cover your
question.
roof unless it's torn off.
Right. But with this,
So you have to check your insurance policy.
yeah, I haven't seen code coverage, I'm saying more for like ice and water barrier and things like
Yeah,
that.
but it's not always, because it's just like insurance, they'll insure you sight unseen. They don't have to come look at your house to insure, they'll look and see.
Right, I
if
know,
it's
they'll just
supposed to
buy
be
separate
working, whatever.
policy.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's the thing I'm told.
My question was
It doesn't
because
come
what is
standard.
the likelihood that the homeowner is gonna be out the 75% that Jacob just pointed out?
I've never seen that happen. A lot of times, it's like you said, they'll reinsure them, and it's,
Mason, what's your
Who
question?
measures the 25%?
so it goes down to a square, 10 foot by 10 foot square. So in the case of wind damage, how many shingles are creased, missing, or the seals are
So
broken?
it's just based on the 20, or the 10.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a sample size, and how many hail hits are in that. So if you have 20%, think about the roof, expanding that out to a roof, you have so much room.
25% of a 10-foot square, not 25%.
It depends on your adjuster, 'cause a lot of, some adjusters are not trained.
Yeah, they're not most adjusters on train.
You can apply to be an insurance adjuster, you don't have to have an experience in a lot of
Yeah.
cases, so it depends on your adjuster, some of them will go all over your roof.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I know where I'm at, but I have a couple of comments. One, you're fighting this battle here. As we can see, those are reputable cities.
Yes,
Whether we're ahead of them or not, they're reputable cities. They are following the building code as is, as adopted. Where else do you have this in effect that this helps you? Fort Smith is the only town in Arkansas that has this.
That
That
has
you-
responded to his request.
Fort Smith carried it over from when they switched from the Southern Building Code, but what all said, they've carried it on since day one, so there was no new change.
Right.
So where else in the state of Arkansas does this rule apply?
As far as I know, Fort Smith is the main one where it's been in effect. I don't know of anything else outside of it. I think the reason why it's not in effect is I think the storms are becoming more frequent and they're in larger intensity. And
Now then, on top of that, here's the deal, once all these insurance companies figure out that this is in effect, and then you're gonna place insurance rates in the door.
They already are.
Pay for it, it doesn't matter, they'll go up more because they will counsel it, because they know that's gonna be enforced in our area.
And that's why when we do the roof for firemen, we build fortified roof systems, because the roofs that we've built, none of them are gonna get ripped off, none of them are gonna have failures. That's a fact.
You're not gonna be rebuilding all of it.
But that goes back to you guys having to have, the code enforcement of what you put on the roof is that we need to have fortified roof systems here. That's the only way, or the roofers are gonna keep cutting corners.
You need to approach the state, get the state. I'm feeling, I don't think we need to get into the insurance business. When we're already in the building business.
Well, this is protecting policyholders. This has nothing to do with insurance. This is what you guys
But that's
decide to
still
protect.
And I think making a statement. Instead of you, and I appreciate your passion.
Yeah, I mean, I can show you hundreds of emails where the insurance company asks us for the municipality to give you evidence of.
You don't have the time or the energy, you know, of course I do. Go to every one of these cities.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. That's exactly what we're
Get
doing.
this change in every city.
That's what we're doing.
My suggestion to you, you know, the way to do this, you should go worldwide.
Yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, that's not.
That's where.
I mean, we're here right
No,
now.
That's the ICC, that's where the code gets adopted, that's where amendments are made, amendments are voted on and added. And if you get it amended to the code, not municipalities, but the actual code, the ICC, and the Arkansas State Fire Prevention Code, that's the state fire marshal, you go in there and you get a chance there. Every state, every city.
If you can justify, I'm just gonna say this, if you can justify right now to say no to this, to not protect policyholders, that's on you and your conscience. That's
And
nothing to do with me.
I appreciate you
Because
working in
that's
such a way.
that's what it
that I'm
comes
the bad
down to.
guy here.
No,
And
that's
I'm
what it
even
comes
if you're gonna
down
make
to.
me the bad guy.
That's what it comes
because
down
I'm
to.
doing my job.
I'm a roofer and I'm telling you
That's
every
fine.
day, we're dealing with people, the next time I come in here, I will bring in 20 or 30 people that will say, this should have been infected in Van Buren, and it comes down to you guys making that decision. So don't push it off on the state, this is your guys' decision. Next time I will fill this room up.
You did not listen to
I
what
will
I
fill
told
this
you.
room up with 20
You
or
did
30
not listen to
people.
what I told you.
I will fill this room up
You
with
did
20
not listen
people.
to what I told you.
Go for
I'm
it,
just
I'll
saying.
bring 20 or 30 people next time, that's fine.
We've got a motion to deny and a second. All those in favor of the motion?
And that video right there is filming all of you guys saying no to policy.
That's fine, this is a
Good job,
public
guys.
meeting.
Good job.
Sydney, did you vote? Oh, we had a motion, a second to deny.
Yeah, cause I think I would have to do some more research
Okay,
before I can.
well, it's on film, everybody can see this, so when I bring in 20 to 30 people next time, you tell them that you said no to them,
Thank you very much.
and not having the protection there for them. Thanks, guys.
So,
I need my paper.